Handcuffed in broad daylight for simply looking suspicious, what happened next left everyone speechless. This is the story of Aaron Blake. A confident, middle-aged man whose life took an unexpected turn in the bustling downtown of Silver Heights. But Aaron wasn't just any man. The officers who arrested him had no idea they had crossed paths with someone who held more power than they could imagine. Silver Heights was alive with activity that afternoon. The streets were filled with workers, shoppers, and families enjoying the vibrant cityscape. Amid the lively atmosphere, two officers, Deputy Thompson and Officer Reed, were on patrol. Their reputation for targeting individuals they deemed suspicious preceding them. It was a reputation spoken of in hushed tones, a symbol of systemic prejudice that many in the community had grown all too familiar with. Their gaze fell upon Aaron, who had just stepped out of a sleek black sedan near City Hall. Dressed sharply in a tailored gray suit, his calm and purposeful stride exuded authority. Yet to Thompson and Reed, his confidence was not a mark of respectability but a red flag. What they didn't know was that this wasn't going to be a typical arrest. By the next day, Aaron Blake would preside over their case in court as the judge. The streets of downtown Silver Heights buzzed with life as shoppers, professionals, and tourists moved between towering buildings and cozy cafes. Amid the vibrant energy, the city's notorious duo, Deputy Thompson and Officer Reed, roamed the sidewalks with their characteristic air of dominance. Their sharp eyes scanned the crowd, seeking someone who didn't seem to belong. Their focus landed on Aaron Blake, a poised, middle-aged black man who had just stepped out of a sleek black sedan near City Hall. His tailored gray suit, polished shoes, and leather briefcase spoke of professionalism and success. Aaron walked with quiet confidence, his purposeful stride revealing a man accustomed to respect. Yet, to Thompson and Reed, his presence raised alarm. "Sir, stop right there," Thompson barked, his hand inching toward his holstered weapon. His voice carried an air of intimidation that had become his trademark. Aaron paused mid-stride, turning slowly to face them. His calm demeanor betrayed only a flicker of disbelief. "Officers, is there a problem?" His voice was measured, steady, and devoid of panic, a response that seemed to irritate them further. "We've had reports of a vehicle like yours involved in a theft nearby," Reed added, his tone dripping with feigned concern. Aaron's brow furrowed slightly. "That's a serious accusation. May I see the report?" Thompson's jaw tightened, his irritation palpable. "Hands where I can see them." "You're under arrest for obstruction of justice," he snapped. Bystanders froze, their faces a mix of shock and unease as the scene unfolded. Phones emerged from pockets, capturing every moment as Aaron raised his hands in compliance, his movements deliberate and calm. As the cold metal cuffs locked around his wrists, Aaron's composed voice cut through the tension. "You're making a grave mistake." Thompson and Reed exchanged smirks, laughing dismissively as they led Aaron to their cruiser. The growing crowd whispered in disbelief, their murmurs overshadowed by the clicking of phone cameras. Unbeknownst to the officers, their actions were already sparking outrage. Videos of the incident, showing Aaron's dignified compliance and the officers' aggressive behavior, spread like wildfire across social media. By nightfall, hashtags demanding justice were trending, and local news stations began airing the footage. What the officers thought was a routine arrest would soon become a viral example of systemic injustice. And Aaron Blake, the man they had humiliated, would hold them accountable in ways they never anticipated. Inside the precinct, The air was thick with arrogance and authority. Deputy Thompson and Officer Reed strode in, their laughter echoing through the halls as they led Aaron Blake to a holding cell. Their smug expressions revealed their satisfaction, convinced they had scored another easy arrest. Aaron, however, was a stark contrast to the chaos around him. Sitting calmly in the cell, his tailored suit now slightly wrinkled but his posture still composed, he exuded quiet dignity. His silence seemed to unnerve those around him, a stark deviation from the typical resistance or panic they expected. "Think he's some kind of big shot?" Thompson sneered, leaning against the desk. Reed chuckled in agreement. "Yeah. Probably thinks he's above the law or something. Staying quiet doesn't make him innocent." Their mocking tone filled the room as they made no attempt to mask their disdain. Aaron remained unmoved, his gaze steady but unreadable. After hours of dismissing his polite requests for a phone call, the officers leaned further into their false sense of control, confident they had subdued another, suspicious individual. Finally, Aaron broke his silence. His voice, calm and deliberate, carried an unexpected weight. "I need to contact my office. I have court tomorrow." Reed smirked, leaning closer to the holding cell. "Court? What? You planning to represent yourself?" Aaron's gaze didn't waver. "No," he said with quiet authority. "I am the judge." For a moment, silence hung heavy in the air. The mockery in their expressions froze, replaced by faint confusion. Nearby, the sergeant overseeing the precinct had been casually observing the interaction. Now, with a raised eyebrow, he moved toward his computer and typed Aaron's name into the system. As the search results appeared on the screen, his face paled. "Aaron Blake," he muttered under his breath, his eyes scanning the page. "Justice of the peace. Presiding judge at Silver Heights Municipal Court." The room fell eerily silent, the weight of their mistake sinking in. Thompson and Reed exchanged uneasy glances, their bravado crumbling under the realization of who they had just arrested. The storm they had so confidently unleashed was now turning against them, and they knew there would be no easy way out. The courtroom buzzed with anticipation as the clock ticked closer to the start of the hearing. Outside, news vans lined the streets, and reporters jostled for space to capture the moment. Inside, the gallery was packed with community members who had seen the viral videos of Aaron Blake's arrest. Their expressions ranged from outrage to curiosity, their whispers filling the air like a low hum of electricity. When Aaron entered the courtroom, the room fell silent. Gone was the man in handcuffs. Here stood Judge Aaron Blake, draped in his judicial robe, walking with a calm yet commanding presence. Heads turned, and cameras clicked as he made his way to the bench. His transformation was striking, from wrongfully arrested black man to the presiding authority in a courtroom now teeming with media and public scrutiny. Moments later, Deputy Thompson and Officer Reed entered. Their usual bravado had evaporated, replaced by evident discomfort. They avoided eye contact with the judge and the audience, their pale faces betraying their unease. For the first time, they realized the gravity of their actions. The proceedings began with Aaron's firm, steady voice. "Deputy Thompson and Officer Reed, you stand accused of racial profiling, unlawful arrest, and abuse of power. Do you have anything to say in your defense?" Their responses were disjointed and unconvincing. Thompson muttered something about following protocol, while Reed weakly claimed they were acting on a report. But their justifications crumbled under the weight of the evidence. Viral videos, recorded by bystanders, played on large screens for the entire courtroom to see. The footage captured Aaron's composed demeanor as he complied with the officers' aggressive demands. The contrast between his calmness and their hostility was glaring. Witnesses testified about the fabricated accusations and excessive force. Some described how Aaron's professionalism only seemed to provoke the officers further. Then, Aaron's record was introduced. A respected justice of the peace, with years of service to the community. He had been heading to City Hall for a meeting about police reforms when he was arrested. The irony was palpable. The officers had targeted someone working to address the very systemic issues they exemplified. As the evidence mounted, the courtroom's atmosphere shifted. The audience's initial curiosity transformed into palpable anger directed at the officers. Aaron maintained his professionalism throughout the proceedings, though a fire burned in his eyes, a resolve to see justice served. When the time came, his verdict was clear and unwavering: Deputy Thompson and Officer Reed, your actions represent a failure of the trust placed in law enforcement by this community. Effective immediately. You are suspended without pay, pending a full investigation into your conduct. The decision was met with a mixture of relief and applause from the gallery. The officers sat motionless, their careers and reputations hanging by a thread. For Aaron, the moment was bittersweet. Justice had been served, but the deeper issues of systemic prejudice remained. This case, however, was just the beginning of a larger movement for accountability and reform, one he was determined to lead. The aftermath of the courtroom drama rippled far beyond the walls of Silver Heights Municipal Court. The viral footage of Aaron Blake's unjust arrest and his poised leadership as a judge ignited public outrage. Across the city, protests erupted, bringing together people from all walks of life. Signs demanding justice and systemic change filled the streets, and chants echoed through neighborhoods, uniting a community that had grown weary of unchecked authority. Media coverage amplified the movement. News outlets aired interviews with activists, legal experts, and everyday citizens, all calling for an overhaul of policing practices. Social media became a hub for discourse, with hashtags like #JusticeForAaron and #EndRacial Profiling trending nationally. What began as a local issue quickly gained statewide attention, forcing public officials to take notice. Amid the turmoil, Aaron Blake became a beacon of hope and action, refusing to let anger or bitterness define his response. He used his platform as a judge to lead meaningful reform, collaborating with city leaders and community organizations. Aaron spearheaded initiatives to address the deep-rooted biases that had led to his arrest. One of his key reforms was the introduction of mandatory racial bias training for law enforcement officers. These comprehensive programs emphasized empathy, de-escalation techniques, and cultural competency. Aaron also championed the creation of independent oversight committees, diverse panels tasked with investigating officer misconduct and ensuring accountability. His efforts didn't stop at Silver Heights. Aaron's leadership inspired neighboring cities to adopt similar measures, sparking a wave of reforms across the state. Legislators passed new laws requiring transparency in policing, stricter penalties for misconduct, and body cameras for all officers on duty. While the changes were significant, Aaron knew there was still work to be done. Trust between law enforcement and the community wouldn't be rebuilt overnight, but progress was being made. The sight of diverse police recruits entering the academy under the new reforms gave Aaron a sense of cautious optimism. Standing on the steps of City Hall months later, Aaron reflected on the journey. The scars of injustice still lingered, but he saw a path forward, one built on equity, accountability, and the belief that justice should be a cornerstone, not an uphill battle. The story of Aaron Blake is more than just a tale of injustice, it's a catalyst for change. What began as a wrongful arrest exposed the cracks in a system that too often fails those it is meant to protect. But it also revealed the power of resilience, accountability, and collective action. Aaron's resolve to fight for justice turned his personal ordeal into a movement that inspired an entire community. His leadership sparked reforms that not only held two officers accountable but also paved the way for systemic change. New training programs, independent oversight committees, and statewide accountability measures are all steps in the right direction, proof that progress, while slow, is possible. But the work is far from over. Aaron's story reminds us that justice should not depend on position, privilege, or circumstance. It should be a foundation upon which society stands, unwavering and fair. For every Aaron Blake, there are countless others who face similar injustices without the spotlight or support. This is where we come in. The fight for equity and accountability requires all of us. Demand systemic reforms in your community. Support organizations advocating for racial justice and police accountability. Use your voice to amplify stories like Aaron's and push for policies that ensure no one is above the law and no one is unfairly targeted by it. Aaron Blake's journey is a testament to the power of hope and determination. It's a reminder that while change may not come easily, it's always worth fighting for. Together, we can create a future where justice is not an uphill battle but a cornerstone of our society. Let this be our call to action: stand up, speak out, and strive for a world that is truly just for all.